So, Josh, normally I start with this whole concept that I've been doing called guest to guest, where my last guest asks the next guest a question. But I made a mistake with the last guest, and he asked one specifically for an artist rather than being more abstract. And that
Oh,
artist we scheduled. So I'm talking to her next week. So it doesn't apply to you. But Johnny Hetherington, he's the lead singer of a pretty well-known band up here called Art of Dying. They've done a lot of really cool stuff over the last 20 plus years, collabed with many big names in Canada and the US alone. He brought up this concept. Like we're just chatting about life, and I was saying that authenticity is the number one thing that comes up on this podcast for everyone I've talked to, whether they're artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, back end of the industry. It's always authenticity. And I'm saying how your truth is your art, that like whatever your truth in your heart is, that is what you should be releasing to the universe. And when we're chatting, he kind of accidentally gave me a really awesome idea by saying that your arc is your art. So it's not just your truth, but it's your actual life story and life journey that is your art. What do you think?
I wholeheartedly agree. I kind of for me the one's life and the way they conduct themselves socially or on their own, or the way they think about everything,
Mm-hmm.
and the way they interact with people, places, and things, that is constant creativity. I think you don't have to just produce some sort of work that falls into one of the artistic categories. I do think that everyone's life and the life they live is a constant creative act. And I try and stress that to people all the time who sort of diminish themselves in relation to someone who makes music or is another kind of
Mm-hmm.
artist. They sort of kind of place the creative act on a pedestal. And in my opinion, you could be just as creative getting out of bed and brushing your teeth and making your morning drink or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's all the same. Some of us just happen to pick up instruments and write melodies and do all that, but at the end of the day, like, it's all really just you. It is really
Yeah.
all just who you are and everything that you've experienced up to that point.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I take it a step further with some of the artists that we work with. They oftentimes will compare themselves to, or, oh, if I could play, like Josh, or if I could be cool like Kurt Cobain. And we try to remind them that like those people are just being themselves. And what you need to do is be yourself, and the quirks and the things that you think about you are nerdy or wrong or judged. Those are the things that make you uniquely you, and you need to embrace those to create the best art or to be the most authentically yourself.
Yeah. Or just kind of, or recognize that, most often it's your concept of that person's coolness or your concept of, what you are not. So you have just
Mm-hmm.
as much power to start thinking in a different way about yourself or about another person, or you really have the power to change your mind if you set about doing so. You can change many things about yourself,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, kind of self-doubt and sort of self-flagellation is very hard to move away from, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's definitely possible.
100%. I mean, at any level. So, I have a whole script of questions here, but going with the flow, how do you do it? Do you have moments of, given your crazy accolades, do you still have moments where you're like, I could be a better guitar player. I'm not good enough. I'm trying to be better.
Every day. I mean, that's, it's kind of debatable whether it's to kind of off the charts unhealthy levels, because I think it does push me. It drives me um, to get better or to experience more or whatever. The concept of getting better, I've always just been, if you're talking about technically, just simply the technic, kind of the techniques of playing music. I wasn't born with an enormous amount of discipline.
Mm,
As a young person, I just started playing and I enjoyed it and I had fun with it and I was able to pick it up pretty quickly, like drums, or once I started teaching myself guitar, like it all kind of happened pretty quickly. And coupled with my lack of discipline and my sort of inability to slow down and struggle and kind of work at things, I I just, by the time I was playing guitar for a couple years and probably would have um, done well to really sit down and kind of work through some stuff, I was already 18 or 19, and life certainly at that point wasn't going to allow for a lot of discipline for me. So I
mhm,
kind of carried on just building upon my skill set through uh, playing along to records or just, practicing whatever I decided was important to practice at the time, but it wasn't formal in any way. And, to this day, I feel like a fraud and a hack and someone who didn't really learn properly and all this. I've moved past some of that self criticism a bit. And I realize that, for everything that I'm not, I am absolutely myself. And,
yeah,
if I wanted to be better at anything, I could devote myself to it, set aside the time. And, if you really want to, you can do, or you can begin the journey. Whether you make it to some far off, distant destination is a different
yeah.
story. But one thing I've always struggled with is enjoying the process of things. So really, I think that's probably one of the things that, one of the biggest lessons to learn in life is that uh, if you can enjoy the now, if you can enjoy the process of doing things, of struggling and learning, and not looking at everything as good or bad, or
Mhm,
difficult and easy, just simply just do the thing and just do it and be one with the process of doing it and
yeah.
be content, then you're probably in a good place if that's the way you can conduct yourself.
I mean, that's such a hard. It's so easy in concept, but it's so hard. Like it's easy on paper. It's so hard to enact in life as being present, right? Is grounding yourself and doing that. And that's something that I'm working on big time now. But you said something at the beginning there that I found interesting. Um, you said that your lack of discipline was also what's motivating you to have discipline in different terms and different words. Like you could have done more to stay focused on the guitar, but that also was one of the things that was driving you to continue playing.
uh well, I think I just at some point realized, looking back, at my
Okay.
younger years, I realized that discipline is something I just don't have. And at that point, or at various times, I could just take out the biggest guns and turn them on myself for that. But it's absolutely not my fault. That's just the brain I was born with. It was
Mm,
never easy for me to sit down and apply myself in those sort of formal ways, or sit down and struggle, whether it was on drums or anything really. And that could be some sort of neurodivergence for all I know. Like it was just always difficult to sit and focus on something. My mind is sort of 1,000 places already, so
right.
1,000 different places. And that's what led me to be, I guess, a multi-instrumentalist. If I started struggling with something on the guitar, I would, work at it a bit until I got it, or got it good enough. But then I would be over at the piano learning another song, or I would be playing drums or something. I was always sort of jumping around. And yeah, I mean, there's positives and negatives to being like that. Only when faced with something you cannot do, do you then, look at yourself with that certain critical lens? But all it
Yeah,
takes is for the next person to come up, tap you on the shoulder, and ask you to do something you can do, and then you could sort of think, you be thankful for what brought you there. I don't know. It's all
yeah,
perspective, I guess. It's ever changing.
I agree. Um, is there something that you used or taught yourself over the years to have more discipline to basically get to where you are now with such depth of talent with all these different instruments?
Oh, you're too kind. Um, I mean, I think, yeah, just pay, you're just, with time, you realize that no one's going to do the work for you. You actually just have to sit there. If I want to play something on an instrument, just because I play those instruments a bit and
Hmm.
have a career doing so, doesn't mean I can just play everything like that. So, you have to work at it. Or writing specifically for me has always been something that's been hard, is, sitting there struggling with words, struggling with, like smashing these sounds into specific rhythmic phrases. That takes
Hmm.
time, and that takes thought, and that takes being slow, and it takes really sitting in the discomfort that comes with not succeeding instantly. And I think you just sort of learn that after a while. You can go on until you're 60 years old saying, "Oh, I'm not disciplined," and "Oh, it's fine." But if you want to accomplish something, you have to just sit there and struggle. You have to do it. And if you don't, then you don't. That's fine. But then you don't accomplish what you want to accomplish. So, I mean, it's kind of just, how many times can you have the conversation with yourself where you're bemoaning your natural tendencies, but also bemoaning that you're not accomplishing anything. You
Right.
do have the power. You're not hopeless. You might have a hard time focusing for whatever reason. You might have less discipline than the person next to you, but that doesn't matter. You can still do it. If you
Hmm.
truly can't sit still and your mind is truly 1,000 places and you really still are finding it hard, there's people to talk to for that. You can go seek medical help, or but yeah, it's really just down to finally learning the lesson. Like, if I want to get here, I have to actually make the
Do the
journey.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Fail fast, fail hard is one of the things that I say regularly. And you have to do the reps. You have to do the work. There's no easy way or easy solution to it. Sometimes it might come easier to others. But I mean, even Jordan, first one on the court, last one off the court. He put in, why is he the greatest of all time? Because he probably worked harder and longer than everyone else. Mix that with luck and talent and timing, and boom, perfect storm. For you, I'm fascinated by the mind, and we're all so different and unique. Was it was it harder to learn any one instrument? Did you find like drums or guitar or piano more challenging or less challenging? Is it the same mindset for all of them? Give me an idea of the depth of your mind.
Well, I'd say piano maybe is a little more, for at least for me, it requires a kind of dexterity that I am unfamiliar with. Guitar, obviously you're doing things with both hands, but piano, you're sort of doing the same thing with both hands, and one is far slower or less adept than the other one,
Mhm.
just by nature of how I learned, how I taught myself, and how lazy my left hand is. And I also feel like piano might require, or at least it's beneficial to have little more theoretical knowledge, at least for me. I mean, guitar, you could pick up and start playing songs and go for a long time. With piano, I feel like you could do that as well, but if you have a bit of musical theoretical knowledge, it becomes easier to
Okay.
grab things, and so I feel like for me that piano's been the most challenging. Just it's forced me to work at my
Harder.
theoretical understanding, and it's yeah, and it's and my and just kind of it's just hard. Yeah, it's harder. It's the one I've probably spent the least amount of time with, but I enjoy it the most.
Well, that's fascinating for me because I mean, I'm not by no means do I consider myself a musician. I noodled on guitar when I was younger, and I still have them lying around. But I just assumed that it would be drums because you're using four appendages rather than two. And you mentioned like the different timing with the hands, like you have that with drums, and then you've got your feet on top of that. Did drums just come to you more naturally? Do you think it's because you started younger? Why do you think piano's harder?
Maybe, I mean, drums. I guess there's all sorts of there's all sorts of uh, measures of what's good and what's not. I mean, I guess for me, drumming, if I wanted to do crazy technical things like jazz fusion, then we would be having a different conversation. But for me, the kind of drumming that I tend to do more of came pretty naturally. Um, Yeah, I mean they all present lots of challenges, and they all require dexterity, and they all require practice.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean I'm sure there are times where my answer would be different, but I'm staring at a piano right now, and I'm thinking of all the things. I'm thinking of all the things, all the times I've uh, struggled recording a song because I just can't get the piano right, or I'm
Yeah,
being too perfectionist when it comes to the piano.
fair enough. I'm definitely, getting vibes of humble and humility, which is crazy considering your accolades. Do you think that some of your self-imposed pressure or your drive to succeed is because you left high school to pursue music? Do you think that that was like, okay, I gotta prove that I made the right decision?
Well, I mean, very specifically, yes, because of just because of my relationship with my parents at the time. There was an enormous amount of unrest brought about by my leaving school. When I left school, it wasn't too specifically focus on a career in music. It was just simply there was a ridiculous attendance policy that would have required me to go back and retake PE in the summer or something, and I was just like, okay, this is not for me. Then I'm not. I refuse to kowtow to these idiotic policies. Um, and that's when I taught myself guitar mostly. Um, but yeah, there definitely was an inspiration to succeed in somehow, but I can't or in any way any way I could, but I can't say that I had much control over whether that occurred or not. I think though I consider myself lazy in a lot of ways, I think I did slowly and then less slowly become somewhat obsessive about the idea of moving forward, or just um like I suppose at some point, I mean, it's an interesting question though, what success is, because in many ways
Mhm.
I was rolling around saying to people at age 17 or 18, like, I don't know can I swear?
Yeah, for
I don't
sure.
know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life, because I'm 17 or 18 and I've already succeeded in many ways. I've played with some of my heroes already, and I don't know what the rest of the journey is supposed to uh how it's supposed to fulfill me more than I might be at the moment. Now that sounds like the utterings of a very young person who doesn't know
Yeah.
what else is out there, but there were moments back then that I felt like I succeeded. I could write songs and melodies and chords that made me extremely happy and felt fulfilled, and I felt like I was appreciative of the ideas that came through me, and I was playing with people that I loved and respected and was truly inspired by. I was sort of like, what else is there? I I have to. You're telling me I have to finish this work and put it out there for other people to like, I mean, eh. but, but yeah, I mean, then you realize that, there is more to experience. And, yeah, I mean, it's always been intertwined, like for me, playing music and, uh, getting to, getting to travel the world doing it. And, it's been nothing but, I've been so lucky. It's been nothing but meeting new inspiring and exciting people and being with those people in wonderful places all over the world that I would have never thought at some point early on that I would see rather than,
Yeah.
get to play music in. So yeah, jumping back to the question about, or to the what were you saying about,
The
the,
pressure with the high school. Yeah.
no, the life being the art, I felt
Oh, okay.
I was always sort of, at some point early on, I just was always like, this is, it's not simply the music or the performing of songs in front of people. It's me here now drinking this coffee in this place, experiencing this situation or this sunset or this street scene. That's what, and what I do next is my is my next creative act. If I go left or
Yeah.
if I go right, that's, and it's just fulfilling to me to think that way. But that's
That
what
you have the
that's
choice.
or just know that I will be doing whatever it is I'm doing. It's just kind of an ongoing creative journey because, sometimes I feel, or most of the time, I feel like the choice is a hard thing to uh, admit to because we are all just a kind of a collection of our previous experience and our genetics and things that we had no control over. So whether I go left or right at that intersection on that day in whatever city I'm talking about might not truly be up to me. It's just what's happening.
Yeah.
It's and it's an ongoing creative act to just exist. It's not me pulling the levers and making the choices. It's it's just happening. It's like yeah, it's yeah, it's kind of the free will discussion, like whether the whether we
100%.
whether we truly
Like,
have any free will or not.
it ties in really nicely to the album that you dropped today, as well as your band name, which I want to talk to. But I asked about that school thing because I find it's so fascinating how everyone has different tricks and motivators and things that they respond well to. There's sure the goal of I want to get there. I want to be this successful as a guitarist. Then there's who you surround yourself with. Then there's the plan or planning how you're going to get to that goal. But then there's just like the motivation to get off your butt and do it. And I feel like so many people don't even have that first step figured out where they
Mm.
don't know how. And then once you've figured out that first step and you know how to like do it, the discipline to be consistent with it. And so I find it fascinating talking to people like yourself who have had such successes, whether it is just that flow and that luck and that timing, or is it, man, I busted my ass and I played like 40 million hours of guitar to get here. But what was that
Well,
inertia? What was the
I feel
inertia
like
that,
there's probably lots of people who've played 40 million hours of guitar and still not achieving anything like they expect to or like they want to.
mm,
You know, I um I think early on, and then especially around the time where I left school, I really just took the attitude. I mean, I think what propelled me to move forward and do it with anything like a tenacity was simply that I wasn't quite sure what the inspiration behind the next day was. Like
mm,
I didn't have any plans. I didn't I'm sure I will sound rather like a child here, but I never was no one's ever explained to me what the purpose of anything is. I don't be like I've always been sort of angry that I was even born, you know? Like,
Mm,
why would you do this to someone? Life is nothing but fucking misery. So the following day is always an enormous palette of possibilities for exciting experiences if you make it that. So that has always been my inspiration. Is like, what's that amazing quote? You know, you're an absolute expert. You're an award-winning expert at being who you were the day before, you know, or something like
mm,
that. Like I've always tried to, at least if I can, experience something new the next day. Think about things in a different way than I did the day before. You know, never get stuck somewhere mentally, or you know, having a plan. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a plan and working toward it, but also, you know, you just never know what's going to happen, you know. So yeah, I guess
absolutely.
for me, it's always I think I was a bit freed by never wanting kids, never wanting marriage, never feeling like what I was told you're supposed to have in life really meant anything. If those
Right.
things happened, then great. I don't expect it, and I'm not out there looking for anything. I'm just trying to live, and I'm trying to experience every day. I'm not trying to uh, burden myself with loads of things that have the tendency to disappoint if they don't
Mhm.
turn out the way I've envisioned them, which is kind of delusional because it'll never be how you imagine it. You could try.
Y But you know what you said there that I find so cool is that it almost sounds like because of the mindset you had as a, adolescent, a 17, 18-year-old with, "I don't even think about tomorrow, I'm not planning tomorrow," that you were able to put yourself and stay in this, like, crazy state of presence, and so you were just doing, what naturally came to you in that moment, which, as we talked about at the beginning of this thing, is your authentic self. Do you think that that's accurate, that you've just been more hyper present than you realize?
Perhaps, yeah, I think so. Well, because because I think of myself as a pretty dissociative person, someone who's
Mm,
always wrapped up in the intellect of something rather than the emotion of something, and always
mhm,
sort of observing myself like this, and always sort of second guessing everything, and you know, over analytical about everything and anything. But at the same time, I do think what you just said is perhaps true. I've also been able to sort of just go with what comes, and
mm,
be open to everything. And even if something was difficult or something seemed totally unrealistic, and you know, beyond my ability, or my seeming ability to accomplish, I just jumped into it and I just did it,
yeah,
because really the experience is all that matters, and the process, and the you know, the doing rather than the not doing.
yeah. I mean,
Learning, you know, the learning. Even if you fail, even if you embarrass yourself, and I'm not saying I've been it's easy to embarrass myself, or failure is easy. I'm not saying that in any way. Um, but every experience creates an infinite amount of possibilities for
yeah,
learning and growing. And I always feel like, you know, sometimes losing the championship is more valuable than winning, you know, like whatever it is, you know, you sometimes not getting what you want is better than
yeah,
getting it, you know. I know many people who lament, no, I'm one of them, who lament certain things about what they didn't experience or what they didn't get. And it might just be that everything was perfect
yeah. I
because it
mean, I
was
I
what it
think that
was.
I think imperfection is the perfection. That's like the Japanese concept of wabi sabi, which I have tattooed here, is that the incomplete circle is the perfect circle. That the sandbox with the stones, the Zen garden with the stones that are not quite symmetrical, that is the perfection. It's funny because like we talked about authentic art, and like the best art is the stuff that's just the realest and the rawest. It's coming straight from the heart mind connection. To get that art, you have to be in flow state, right? Like you're jamming, you're in an amazing flow. It's just coming to you. That's that lightning that they talk about, lightning in a bottle. To get to that flow state, you have to be present. So it asks a question logically, like, are the greatest artists of all time, the people that have succeeded the most, the ones that we look up to as musicians, painters, whatever, simply better at being present and tapping into that?
I don't know. I mean, because it's all relative. Some people are enormously successful and probably have scores of admirers, and they don't write a single thing. They get up and look good, and they dance well, and they have a style and a thing. So, but some of us look up to a Kurt Cobain, or that you mentioned, someone you mentioned, like, he seemingly had the abilities, no matter what state his life was in, to strum the guitar and sing beautiful things on top of it. And even if he sang them loudly and with distortion, they still had an inherent beauty that's sort of undeniable to most people. um I don't know if one state is more desirable than the other. Like, I don't know if he was in a flow state. I don't know if someone who, like Taylor Swift, who has these 3-hour concerts, that maybe that's her being in a flow state. I mean, that's an enormous amount of responsibility to be stared at by a stadium full of people for 3 hours, multiple times a week. Not to mention being like, the sort of one that the entire production depends on. Like, these are all different states of
Definitely.
being, and states of creativity. But I get what you're saying about the flow state. I mean, I think when you can distance yourself from any exterior ideas or expectations, and you're just doing, and you're being who you are. I've been doing some email interviews lately, and people ask about the last song on this album that came out today, where I mentioned that I left the piano is the original iPhone recording that I made when I was writing it, and the timing is really slow and really kind of atypical, because I'm literally just kind of thinking of what chords to go to while I'm doing it. But instead of bashing them and making mistakes and writing like that, I was sort of second by second, I was like, I like this though. This is pretty. Why don't you just try and conceive what the next chord is and get it right? So that whole piano track is that's an example of someone writing a song on the spot. And I thought there was no way I'd be able to recreate that. So I left the iPhone recording, which sounds good to me. But like, I've been saying that that's the kind of thing I want to listen to more and more these days. I don't like the more and more, and I feel like I'm guilty of this with music I've made in the past, or, continue to make. And there's nothing wrong with, producing your music and making a larger thing out of it. But for me these days, the more and more something seems like a product, or something that is geared toward an audience at all, is less interesting to me. I want to hear the music that you're writing when no one's around, with the mistakes and with the sips of tea and the page turning, and that, like, that's kind of, because like we've said a few times, like, that's the art to me, is the person. It's like, sure, a song and a recording and all these things are that's another version of an artistic statement. But like, think of a film like that is many people working long hours, making many mistakes, solving problems, yeah, just for this 90-minute, 200-minute film. That is like a, that's nothing like a flow state.
Yeah,
That's
I mean
that's an
a great
enormous
point.
that's an enormous endeavor. Perhaps when one watches it, it can produce the feelings of that flow state for other people, which would be an enormous uh, accomplishment.
Well, you mentioned there like the Taylor Swift thing too. So I agree with you that there are definitely different variations to it, and I haven't really explored all of them. That concept of the film is fascinating. I wonder if it's an initial idea, initial concept that then perpetuates all the other people being involved in something similar to like what I do with running a business. There's ideas that I have and I generate, then I present them to the team, and then we'll flow together to see where that idea goes, whether the product is the same as I envisioned it or whether it's different at the end. I think with music and painting, and it's very different because there's oftentimes a singular person working on these things. And then performance is totally different too, because there might be a flow state in what Taylor Swift is doing for 3 hours, but that's so different because you're not generating something from new per se. You're performing something that you already had. And I
mhm.
feel like that's almost like a different part of the mind because that is that discipline, right? The discipline to be able to go out there and perform it and have all the people looking at you. So there's elements to it, but for the sake of my philosophical idea or my hypothesis, it was simply for your artistic creation flow state. And it sounds like you do a lot of that, like same thing with the piano. You were just capturing that in real time, how you're feeling in the moment. And you're like, this is the output, end of story.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of the arduous work recreating what I would maybe think of as a flow state, where I'll just play piano, I'll come up with chords, I'll improvise, I'll sing stuff that's illegible, and I like it so much I'm trying to recreate it, and I'm trying to play the piano exactly how I did on the demo recording. I'm trying to write lyrics that make some sort of sense, but also sound like the initial flow kind of moment. And yeah, I'm not sure if that's if I've had success with that. I mean, there's two songs I could think of, one on my first album called Fall from Grace, and then one on the second album called Don't Have To, I think. And those were both these recordings that I made while I was just improvising. And every time I stumbled upon them, I was like, that's magic right there. But
Mm.
maybe now I would release those. But at the time I felt like that was ridiculous to subject someone to my, very unfinished work. But like I said, like to me, that's kind of what I want to hear these days.
Well,
It's I want to hear
maybe
the
that's your
moment.
next project.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like it seems like it could go like everything seems to go in the extremes. Like things are seeming enormously inauthentic or overproduced, or it's difficult to sense the humanity behind certain
Hmm.
music.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I think because of that, we'll have recordings and artists who are just releasing their iPhone voice memos folder, because what's with the in between to me is like trying to be one of the other. It's like trying to like
Yeah.
how much to over underproduce, or how much to be, they like everything to me. I probably shouldn't speak like this so early in the morning, but everything to me seems like it's being done. Like I'm very, and that's not to say that there's nothing good around, or it's impossible to make emotionally connective uh, work. But so many things have been done that
Oh, absolutely.
it's
But
really
you know what?
hard to find genuine, uh, passionate sort of work for me that
Mhm.
that interests me. Like, even if
Yeah.
it's clear that someone is passionate and genuine with what they do, most likely I've heard it before. And I certainly have heard a song that's going to do those chords basically and that melody and, and sing about what you're singing about. And, so due to my laziness and lack of time and poor ability to manage that time, it's not, once in a while, something jumps out of the speakers or the screen and just grabs you and holds you hostage, and there's no chance that you could live without hearing that song again. I haven't experienced that in a little while, but it's
Well,
possible.
you said something. You said two cool things there. So one is I love this idea of this capturing the lightning and just releasing it. I'll come back to that, but there's so many artists that have said what you just said. Like, it's been done before. I feel like imposter sometimes, or someone else has done this and they've done it better. But it's all subjective because, for everyone that knows Taylor Swift, there are probably more people that don't know Taylor Swift. And for every person that's heard that music and loves that music, they don't know. I have this happen to me all the time. I've been running, music websites or entertainment websites for 2+ decades now. And I still get pitched stuff where I go to Spotify and I'm like, I've never heard of this person in my life, and they have 13 million monthly listeners. Like, how? So I think that it's really important for artists to not fall into that trap of this has been done before, because most people haven't heard it. Most people haven't done things. I mean, like, I'm a mindset coach. There are thousands of people that have done this before that have probably done it infinitely better than me. There's philosophers that go back, hundreds of years that have had way bigger and better thoughts than me. We're just repeating a lot of what everyone else has already said. That doesn't mean that people don't need that.
Yeah,
And
no,
then,
certainly not. I mean, what I hope it inspires people to do, I mean, this is why I continue to write and make records and stuff. I can't not do that, but and maybe the title suggests this. It's like the title of the album, but these kind of thoughts, they discourage me often. Like, why would you continue to do this? You're just another person with a guitar whining about whatever.
mm,
But it you it does propel me a little further. It does move me to try and make something that doesn't sound exactly like anything else. And hopefully it does. That's what it would do for anyone. Just, I mean, yes, everything's been done. How many times can we write Beatles songs over and over? But it's hopefully it makes you think about all the other things that go beyond the music. I mean, who are you as a person? Like, why are you
mm,
doing what you do? Are you just doing it to get popularity and get some money or something? Like, if that's the case, then, I would imagine that it might, you may get lost sooner than later, due to how much there is out there. But if you're doing it for these genuine explorative impulses, and truly because the wonder of creativity and the wonder of music, and let's say, is something that's just a wind at your back, then yeah, I mean, that's the best. That's the best. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like when when anyone's moved to do something, they have to just do it. And second guessing themselves is not going to serve them.
Well, that's that authentic creation we talked about earlier, like doing it from your soul. Your soul's purpose is your sole purpose. That's one of the things I love to remind myself. So I find it fascinating. So this is actually the first time that I've talked to an artist on release day. So the album is literally out today, A Drop in the Ocean. I'm going to come back to your accolades and how it feels in this concept of the drop in the ocean. But let me ask you genuinely, what does it feel like to have the album out? And I ask that not in a, oh my God, what's it like having the album out today? I have so many artists that will hit us up and they'll say, my album's ready. It needs to come out. Let's drop it in a month. And I'm like, dude, if you want to do marketing and all this stuff properly and have a chance to grow this, like we need 6 months, we need a year, we need to really work with this. So there's that artistic struggle of like really wanting it out immediately. But then once it's out, do you feel like, empty because no one's listening? Like where are you on the album release thing? How does it feel?
This particular one, coupled with being older and now having released a bunch of records at this point, and this one in particular taking several years to finish. Like I began a lot of this in 2022 and kind of revisited it in 2023 when I was home from touring, and then sort of 2024, same thing. Like I didn't approach these recordings with a tenacity and like a schedule like I had the previous couple albums. I was just I was building upon them, and maybe because there was a little amorphous and I didn't impose any deadlines on myself, I kept feeling like I could do better and work harder or work more at getting to the idea that I had in my head for the song originally. So because these songs have been around for so long, the fact that it's out today, it's an enormous relief. But I'm like, whatever, like I all those things that you mentioned, like waiting, marketing, how long it takes to press records, physically, like all that stuff, I totally understand. At the same time, like, yeah, you want it out as soon as possible just so you can move on creatively. But yeah, I understand. I completely understand if you want people to hear it. I mean, ultimately, if you truly didn't care about that stuff, you would just, you wouldn't release things. So I guess, yeah, I understand it all. This one in particular took a long time to come out, mostly because of my inability to get the artwork done in anything resembling, like a timely fashion. And I had this, I kept putting it off because I had this huge concept for something I wanted to try with photographs and the plastic bags and paintings. And I had this whole thing that I'd visualized. And then when push came to shove, I was sort of like, I don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't want to actually physically do that. I don't want to poke holes in these paintings. I like them too much. I don't want to, like, I could fail, and it's just not, I don't know if it's actually going to be, it was, if I wasn't doing 1,000 other things, I would have probably done it. I'm going against what I usually, suggest people do in the face of something difficult. You should just do it. But yeah, in this case, I started finishing the songs that I started the following year after the ones that I'm releasing today. There's a whole nother album's worth of stuff that I have kind of like, on the stove. And so I'm working on those. I'll be in there today. I had hoped to put out 2 albums this year, but I'm not sure I'll be able to finish this one in time for it to be released.
You have to do that idea from before, which is like this album of iPhone recordings that are captured like in true form in the moment. And then someone says, you got to play these live. And you say, I don't know how. I don't even know.
Oh my gosh. That's why I don't play live. That's why I don't play live. I mean, mostly because I write the lyrics. I struggle over them when I'm writing them. I sing them, and then I never interact with them again. I listen to them, but I barely understand what I'm saying. I just absorb the sound. I'm not interacting with the lyrics. I just absorb it as like a fan of the whole thing, not just the lyrics. So, when it comes time to actually performing the songs and remembering things and being, like being responsible instead of just immersed in the music and the sound, I fail.
Failing's okay.
It is okay, and I agree, but I don't know. I don't know if it's not, it's like it's less okay, but it's just more awkward when when people have driven or figured out how to get to a place to see you perform, and you're struggling to get through every song because you can't remember the lyrics in the bridge or something. I mean, if
That's so,
it was me, I would love it.
yeah.
I would be like, more just you being you. It's pretty crazy that you came out here and did this. But I don't think a lot of people would feel that way. And I don't want to be the one that's doing it.
I think you should, man. I think that you'd be pleasantly surprised. So this is funny because I'm not gonna at you or anything. I'm just exploring with you as much as you are. The album's called "A Drop in the Ocean," and you have this incredible career of supporting artists: Eddie Vedder, PJ Harvey, Beck, Iggy Pop, Elton, Elton John. I mean, your buddy John and the Chili Pepper crew. Do you think that you're in this position where you really love being like the supporting artist that can do so many things for so many people, or you just haven't fully embraced stepping out based on what you just said, which is I don't know if people would want to come and see me make mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably stems from a bit of a fear of performing live. I know if I was on tour and I performed my songs over and over, I wouldn't make mistakes. They would become it would become muscle memory. But
Yeah.
it's the practicing of my own songs. There's nothing that sounds more like unfulfilling than sitting in a room and playing my own songs to myself. That sounds like agony to me. I'd
That's
rather be
funny.
writing something new or reading or doing something. I'm not going to be sitting there practicing my own shit. But there you go. That's my lack of discipline. If I truly want to get out there and play live and have people look at me while I sing, uh, most likely in a small place while I can hear them drinking and talking, I'll do it. But that
Yeah.
idea hasn't really sounded attractive to me.
Well, so that makes sense. I mean, we talked about Kurt earlier, and he got to a point where he's like, "Fuck, smells like Teen Spirit. I'm not playing this anymore. I want to play different things." And I think before he died, there was even discussion about how he wanted to go in a different route, maybe do some more acoustic stuff. He was like really good friends with Michael Stipes, and obviously that's a very different musical style. And so maybe he was getting sick of repetition. But you've already done the live performance. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you literally opened for Pearl Jam solo, right?
Yeah.
You have no problem being on stage because you've been with these huge names. I mean, fuck, you even just like swapped. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll jump in on the drums for Matt while he's out. No problem. It sounds like it's not even the fear or anything like that. It's just that you want to do new things, that you're constantly looking for some cool new shit to do rather than having to play your same stuff over and over.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, like I used to go see Elliott Smith play by himself. I've seen people perform solo, and they've been some of the most memorable musical experiences I've ever had. But me performing, selling selling myself in a sense, I have not reconciled that yet. I mean, I
Mhm.
understand completely the reason people go perform their songs live and connect with an audience. I'm not that kind of person when it comes to just me. I would have a hard time playing songs at a party. I don't, people looking at me and stuff like that, just me. I don't know. It's too, it's too much attention.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I would love to perform these songs. I would love to play these songs live, but I would have to be inspired by other musicians playing them with me. I could,
Mhm.
that to me would be truly um, uh, creative and a special thing, because you would be doing something every night for the first time. Even if you're playing a song that exists, you're playing it in a slightly different way. You're singing it slightly different, whatever. When I was with the Chili Peppers and I would sing a solo song every night, I mean, usually I would abbreviate the song so it wasn't the whole thing. I think I played the whole song when I did those things like 3 times maybe, but usually it was abbreviated. So it was a short moment. You, Contrary to what people may think, singing in a large space like that in the dark is a lot easier than singing in a tiny place where people are staring
Yeah.
at you and you can
Well,
hear
so can I
them.
ask you? Let me just jump in. Why did you abbreviate those songs? Was it because you felt like it's not
It's
your
too much to
time, or
remember. I have a deficit when it comes to remembering lyrics. It really is truly hard for me. I could quote you whole movies right now. I could do certain films from start to finish that I saw in my childhood. Lyrics, I just have a hard time with them.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is. It just must come from being young and listening to music the way I did, and not interacting with the lyrics
Mhm,
when I was younger. You're younger, you don't really, yeah, most of the stuff I listened to, you couldn't understand what these people were saying, and you don't have the emotional depth to understand most of the things they're saying. So you grab onto a word here or there, you rewrite them, whatever they sound like, you
mhm,
kind of, and then as you age and your experience allows you to connect more with writing and lyrics, your palate grows and everything, but you still like it's still it's still hard to understand a lot of singing for me unless you're Frank Sinatra or Leonard Cohen is
yeah,
really, and yeah, and I just don't sing that way probably because of that. I sing like I have marbles in my mouth, a lot of the time. Like I'm slowly being more legible and more direct with the vocals just because every time I do, people comment that they
mhm,
appreciate that, and I do feel like I've always hidden a little bit behind awkward and strange pronunciation. So I'm always challenging myself to be more vulnerable, more exposed,
love
more
that.
direct.
I
Yeah. I
love
mean, at
that.
the same time, like if it was left up to me, often I would take a line and tur the whole line of lyric and turn it into one word, and just
Mhm.
sort of sing the whole thing, without taking a breath, and you'd never be able to understand what I'm saying. But at that point, it's like masturbatory. What do you, do you want people to connect to it? Do you want people to have a shot at, most people don't listen to music exactly like you do, or no one listens to it exactly like you do. So give people a chance.
Yeah. I this has been such a fascinating conversation so far. I have a few more questions. I mentioned baseball, I think either at the beginning or before we even started recording. Excuse me. And baseball and I guess sports and teams and musicians or groups are similar in the sense that different people have different roles, and some people are up front and some people might be like the leader of the team, and some people are not. You kind of fall into this really cool role of almost like utility player. When I was playing semi-pro ball, we had some people that were like the best pitcher. They played a couple times a week. All they did was pitch. But then we had people on our team that were like, I can do anything. Throw me an outfield, throw me a pinch runner, hitter, whatever. You seem like you adopted that type of role within the music community. And that's why you're able to get on so many records, get on so many tours, fill in for drums, fill in for guitar. Is that accurate? Do you see yourself as something else?
Yeah. I mean, I think looking back at the previous answer, I mean, it comes definitely from being younger, always in every situation I was in, but also having a lower, uh, or a lower amount of self-esteem.
Mm,
Like for me, it was like I said a minute ago, it's always been hard to be the center of attention. Um, but that, yeah, when you start playing with people when you're 17, um, they're the ones who are the singer, let's say Bob Forrest, who I played with when I was 17. Um, I'm there to support. It's not totally an equal collaboration. They've been established, and I'm I'm supporting them. And I suppose there's always been something that makes me feel proud of my ability to do that. I guess like when I have a pretty good uh, track record. I've been lucky enough to only play with people that I rate highly and
mm,
love. So for me, someone who has a hard time, sometimes showing emotions. to myself or to others, this is a way of showing my love for them. My absolute love for them is to be supportive musically or creatively, and being someone that they can trust or lean on and count on musically. Um, and yeah, and then I think, what's that? It's the beginning of the Bill Simmons book of basketball. It's like The Secret, something about Isaiah Thomas, and The Secret. What wins championships is when people buy into the team, and
Mhm.
they're as as much as possible, they're forgoing their own glory for the sake of the team's success and the
Yeah.
shared or collective, uh, kind of experience, which is what has always attracted me about being in a band. I want to have that shared experience with, hopefully, good friends of yours who you love and trust. That's another reason why
Yeah.
playing on my own doesn't interest me, because it just feels lonely. And I don't have to do that. I
Yeah.
I
You want to
I
work with others.
yeah, I could, I could do that. Like I said, I could do that in a room by myself if I wanted to, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a really important lesson in there for not just artists, but for everyone is that, just because the people that you're aspiring to be, the Joshes of the world, just because they're on stage and you see them with the Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Jane's Addiction, whoever it is, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have as much confidence as you think they do.
Oh my god,
But
most likely a real
let
a real deficit.
but the beautiful pluralone in that is that just because you don't have the self confidence, that doesn't mean you can't get there, that you
Yeah.
can't be there. It's a
No.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's also possible to have an enormous amount of confidence and none at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm someone that I felt like I didn't have I wasn't born with any confidence. I've had to grow it in a lab throughout the course of my life. And you could argue that that was another inspiration to succeed, or to constantly be exposing myself to new experiences, because that grew my confidence. Like, you're just more confident than you were the day before if you've seen a new city or a new street, than you do. You're just more familiar with the world. And yeah, I still feel like I have an amazing confidence deficit, and yet I know that I'm me, and I so many
Mhm.
times, like, it's the only, uh, you have to understand that you're a unique life force. There's no one else like you. There's no one else who has what you have or can do what you do. Even if you're telling yourself that you're a piece of shit and you're nothing and you can't do anything and you're worthless, that's only true if you believe it. I mean, and if it's true that you can't do this or that, I mean, then give yourself a year or two and that'll change. I mean, as much as that sounds crazy, in a year or two, that will no longer be true of you. You will be able to do something that you just spent a year learning how to do, or
Yep.
studying, or whatever. So, uh, an enormous amount of confidence comes from that, I guess. Um, yeah, and they happen simultaneously. I mean, a lot of people I know that stand up on stage do it because they're operating from a diminished sense of self-worth, and that's how they choose to fill it, is by, getting applause in the dark.
Yeah. When my alarm goes off on my phone, whatever it is, whether it's a notification or wake up in the morning, I have Nipsey Hustle on there right now, and it's dedication, hard work plus patience. And I just constantly remind myself that it's let time do the heavy lifting. You wake up, you show up, you do the work, and nothing else matters. Time's going to do the heavy lifting for you. Let me ask one more question that's off topic before we wrap up. This one was a little bit more. Um, for me, I was just curious. I saw that you prefer Fender guitars over other ones. And whether that's true or not doesn't even matter. My question is like, how does someone get drawn into a specific brand? You know, like why is Slash renowned for Gibson Les Paul? Is it just that's the first one I ever played, so I fell in love? Or is there something specific to it? What's the why?
Are you asking why someone might be drawn to a specific guitar?
Yeah, or specific instrument, you know, specific.
Well, I guess like for I can't speak for Slash, but it seems like what Slash does, the way he plays the Les Paul is perfect for that. It's heavier, chunkier sound, and
Okay.
it can and it's a bigger guitar, and you know it like bigger than a Strat, let's say, slightly. For me, the Fender Strat is what I thought of when I thought of electric guitar as a kid. I mean, but listening to Buddy Holly as a kid, seeing the Buddy Holly story as a kid,
Mm,
he played a Fender Stratocaster. So a Fender Stratocaster for me as a child was my image of what an electric guitar was. So uh, I'm sure that has something to do with it. I own many a Gibson. I own many other brands of guitars. I have tons of guitars that I love. But yeah, the Fender Strat and the Jaguar and like all those things that they came up with in the 50s and 60s, um, I just adore, and I love their custom colors, and I love the sounds they make, and I love what they feel like to play. When I was younger, I didn't have any Gibsons. Like Les Pauls seemed heavy to me, and yeah, my first guitar was a Strat, and obviously, like the path I wound up on, being in the Chili Peppers, and that's very Strat
mm,
heavy music. Jimi Hendrix played a Strat,
yeah.
mostly. Yeah, so Fender guitars have just always sort of they're from California, as am I, Southern California. Um, yeah,
So it's
there's
not like it's not specific to a sound
oh,
or
I'm sure
one
it is
thing.
for many people.
But it could be multiple things. Like that's the first one I played. That's the one I saw growing up. It happens to fit well on my body, and it's the right
Yeah,
weight, and I like
yeah,
the way
yeah.
it sounds. All of the above.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sound obviously has a lot to do with it, but for me at least, I fell in love with the guitar before I ever touched one, you know. Uh, I and I'm sh- and I but I'm sure there are people out there who have their eye on a certain sound, and they go right for the only for the sound. If you're playing kind of Django Reinhardt type music, like uh, I'm sure a Strat isn't the guitar you'd reach for. So if
Mhm.
that's what you're into and that's what you studied, you go for, you know, whatever those guitars are.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious because I saw the Fender Association. Then I was thinking about like brands that I wear and what maybe the psychology is behind using it. Um, let's let's kind of wrap up. You got this amazing album out today, your fourth solo project. You're you're someone who has more credentials than many, if not most, artists have on their own, let alone in their entire career. So kudos for everything that you've done. The ability
Thank
to
you.
just kind of jump in anywhere and do anything is just astounding. I want to come.
Kudos to you for all that you've built. We didn't really talk
Thank
about
you.
you much, and I would love to hear about your story and what you've done. So maybe we could
I
do this
appreciate
again.
that.
next
Sure,
week.
I'm always down. This
We'll do
isn't
part
about
two.
me. This is about you.
Oh no, that's not how a conversation works.
That's true. Well, I think it's been a good back and forth.
No,
Josh,
it
why don't we
certainly has.
end? Let's
But
end with
kudos to you for everything you've done
thank you. I
and
appreciate
built.
the praise as well. Um, you know what's funny is like I'm the same as you. I feel like I've barely even started. I have so much to do. I'm
Yeah.
nothing. I'm no one. I have to go, go, go. So I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling. But I don't say those things. I say positive, affirming things. Um, let's kind of end on like where we started, this idea of the arc, and your arc is your art, and a drop, but the balance of a drop in the ocean, you know, everything is everything and everything is nothing. And really for me that comes down to your name, to your moniker, because when I first heard it, immediately I went to plur as in the French word for cry. And so I thought it was cry alone, as in like to take the time to be alone, to reflect, to ruminate, to emote and emit. And then I Googled it later on and I was like, oh my God, plur is actually an acronym for peace, love, unity, respect that the electronic community is using. There's so many levels to this. And then I found this interview you did with some French publication where you talked a bit more about uh, duality, but also oneness. And I feel like that's literally how this conversation started, you know? So let's get heady for a
Well,
second.
yeah,
Let's get meta.
and I mean that the name was originally conceived when we were trying to name the band Dot Hacker, and I came up with
Right.
the name and I floated it by, but it didn't seem to fit the band, and I just always held on to it and then pulled that out of my pocket when I made the first Plural One album. But yeah, that I say it Plural One, you know, so like many people say Pluralone because the word alone seems to jump out and kind of catch the eye. But that speaks to the nature of the name. It's like there's more than one way of looking at everything, and that should be celebrated. And you know, it's a very '90s thing to both smash two words together,
Yep.
Soundgarden, you know, what at Mudhoney, and also to use a number. So my '90s sounding band name is Plural One as one word, and basically, you know, that's how I've always kind of, you know, that's just like the duality of existence, right? It's like, are we just one, or are we are we two separate beings? Are we one? Is everything one? Is everything in the universe connected? You know, like that question is
Yeah.
a fascinating question. But you know, I think uh you know, certainly you're you, I'm me, or whatever that means. So it appears that there's a plurality, but you know, at the end of the day, we're both the same stardust.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that. For me, over the last few years, as I went deeper and deeper into my personal journey, spirituality, therapy, counseling, coaching, everything, more and more this idea of oneness kept coming up, which is, dude, stop being defensive. Stop being like, you know, right or wrong, black and white. Both of them are important and both of them are just equal and opposite sides of this one system. And you can't have either one without the other. So that's why I found plural one or plur alone fascinating, because it
Yeah.
was like these two separate things, and you're embodying it. Like having talked to you now for an hour plus, it's like you are this awesome dichotomy of like gifted and on the stage, but like I don't want to be as bright as everyone else on the stage. There is this duality within you, and that oneness is kind of what you as a being represent.
And I do want to be as bright. I don't necessarily have those tools or gifts or the drive all the time. But I mean, I am I am the duality is in all of us, I'm sure, but you know, within me, like I am a big I have been guilty in the past of being someone who always wants to be right, you know, and having a hard time once I feel that there is a right position to take. That is the one. And it's not that no other opinions or no other viewpoints matter. It's just that I don't understand how other viewpoints exist. This is the one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm constantly trying to rewrite that coding every day, and
Yeah.
and yeah, at the same time, I'm also saying that there's always multiple ways of looking at things, and there's always plurality. There's plurality in the world, but we're also all the same. Everyone is the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I always felt like it was like the band name was very sort of like, "Mm."
I think it's great. I think it's on the nose, and I wasn't implying that you didn't want to shine. I was just trying to
Oh, no, no,
allude
no,
to
I
what we
know.
talked about
No,
earlier.
it
Yeah.
sounded from everything I said, it sounded like I don't, but it's like, I think a lot of my struggles throughout my life have been my dissatisfaction with my inability to take center stage. And, you know, I for years I would blame uh genetics. And but it's there for the taking if you want to make an attempt. There if you want
Yeah.
it, you could try. You can, so
You
you
got
have
to
to
go
just do it.
after it. Hell yeah. Uh, Jack, Josh, what do you prefer?
I hate my name. I've always hated it so much. But I wish I cultivated Jack when I was younger, but that was my initials. My middle name is
I know. I
Adam.
like it.
Yeah.
My partner is Jacqueline, and I call her Jack, so it's just
Yeah,
Jack Stick.
yeah, I mean, I should have jumped on that. I just started playing publicly when I was 17, and I just kind of thought I missed my moment. I feel like if I had done a name change early on, I wouldn't have felt too embarrassed. But once played live in front of people one time, I felt like I lost my chance, and
Nah.
I couldn't very well start telling people to call me something else. But I absolutely despise my name.
You're never too old for change. I see all these 70 and 80-year-old guys in fitness magazines. They're like, I was fat my whole life and now I have a six pack.
Yeah.
So change your name, man. Who cares? No one's gonna, all that matters is that you're happy.
Yes, that's true. That's true. You are very right, Chris.
Well, do me
Prefer.
a
I don't know
favor
what you prefer.
after this. Whatever. Gonda, heart dealer, Chris.
Okay.
I mean, I used to get gonorrhea in high school, so it could be worse.
Mm, that's not too insulting. That's like
Do me
trying to be insulting, but being somewhat like quirky and sweet at the same time.
right. Do me a favor. This was such an amazing chat. I'm so appreciative of your time and just for being so real and authentic and give me such cool insight into you as a human. Last thing you have to do is just give us a little piece of Jack advice that people can take away with them on their journey of life. Sign us off.
You only have this one chance. You only have this one life. You shouldn't waste time uh, trying to change things that are unchangeable. Just enjoy every day like it's your last.